Hey, it's Alan, and I just wanted to let you know that you can now listen to the ongoing history of new music early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. A deep breath. You ready? It's only when we focus on our breathing that we realize how important it is that 21% of our atmosphere is made up of oxygen. And that's the ideal amount. Drop to, say, 15%, and it would cause all sorts of mental and physical impairment. If oxygen levels were suddenly to increase, we'd suffer oxygen toxicity, meaning that our cells would oxidize, and that would lead to exhaustion and death. Meanwhile, spiders, roaches, and other crawly things would grow bigger and bigger because of their biology. And if you think we have a wildfire problem now, just imagine if those fires had more oxygen as fuel. So unless you're hoping for a burning planet covered with spiders the size of a compact car, 21% is just right. Why am I talking about this? Well, music is such an integral part of our lives that we have no idea how important it is. Just like oxygen. I can even tell you, a study by Deezer, the French streaming service, says that to maintain a healthy lifestyle, we should listen to 78 minutes of music per day. And the study broke things down even further. That 78 minutes should be proportioned this way for maximum benefit. 14 minutes of uplifting music to exercise your happiness. 16 minutes of calming music. 16 minutes of music that counteracts sadness. 15 minutes of motivational music to help with concentration. And 17 minutes of music that will help you deal with anger. A few suggestions come with this study too. ABBA's Dancing Queen, that's an example of the sort of happy music we should appreciate. When it comes to anger management, AC/DC's Highway to Hell is about perfect. Although certain tracks from Rammstein and Metallica are good too. And Mozart for some reason. This stuff fascinates me. And whenever I run across a study or some research that connects music in the brain and our overall mental and physical health, I bookmark it. And I've bookmarked so much lately that we can now do a full program on it. This is another installment of The Medical Mysteries of Music.
This is the Ongoing History of New Music podcast with Alan Cross.
Okay, before we begin, let's prepare with a song that will help us focus by dealing with any anger issues that have built up in our systems. All right? We shall start with this from 3 Days Grace. Okay, that's a lot better, isn't it? Hello again, I'm Alan Cross, and this is another episode in an occasional series I call Medical Mysteries of Music. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There doesn't seem to be a biological or evolutionary need for our brains to come pre-wired for music, at least as far as scientists have so far been able to determine. Yet it is. There is not a culture that we know of in all of human history that has not had music. Back in 2009, archaeologists searching through a cave in Germany found 4 flutes made out of animal bones. They were all of different sizes too, so that each produced different tones. So basically, they were tuned differently, and I guess made for playing together. It's estimated that these instruments were 40,000 years old. There are places in our brains that have been custom designed for music making, music appreciation, and even music memories. Some are even devoted to 100% to the processing of music, and we have no idea why. This does, however, make for some great stories, facts, and statistics, which of course is where I come in. Let's start with how our brains process music. The first thing that our brains track is melody and pitch, using the same neurons that we use to process speech. Makes sense. Second, there's another set of neurons that do nothing but predict what musical notes are coming next. They are completely separate from the neurons that deal with speech. Those neurons draw on a database of musical memories stored in their very own section of the brain and are always trying to predict what notes come next. At the same time, the brain is processing the context of these notes. This, by the way, explains why music can sound so much better when you're high. Cannabis inhibits the brain's ability to predict what notes come next, even if you're listening to a song that you've heard a million times before. The music is always pleasurable. Our brains tell us that. But because cannabis makes it very tough for the brain to predict what notes come next, every note is a pleasurable surprise. Our brains are already wired to enjoy music with pleasurable surprises, and cannabis just enhances that. Again, even with songs that you've heard a million times. Meanwhile, we like patterns. We like a certain amount of repetition and predictability in our music, but not too much. And if we're going to get adventurous and explore new sounds, there are a few things that we need to overcome. Research published in the journal Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society B indicates that the actual sound of the music, that's the sensory aspect of it, and our cognitive understanding of it, in other words, how we understand how music works, independently contribute to what music we enjoy and what we expect from music. The study involves 2 experiments. 25 adults were played chord progressions from popular songs. They were asked to rate how surprised they were at each chord change. The second experiment involved 39 adults who were asked to rate how pleasant each chord change felt. All the data was fed through 4 computational models that focused on musical expectancy. Researchers found that if the subjects were familiar with a certain musical style, the subjects had more expectations of what they were about to hear next. Makes sense. The second experiment showed that the sensory aspects of music, such as rhythm and melody, also resulted in different expectations from the music. Bottom line is that we derive pleasure from music from the way it meets, violates, delays, or surprises us in terms of what we're expecting from it. And what we actually hear and what we actually understand or know about music both contribute to our enjoyment of it, but in different ways. This shows that there were 2 separate systems in the brain, a higher level and a lower one, that monitor music as we hear it and then predict what we think will happen next. Bottom line is that our enjoyment of music comes not just from the music itself, but also from our knowledge of what we're listening to. Extrapolating that, the more we know about a certain genre of music, the greater the chances that we'll like it. This explains why sometimes it's tough to get into a new form of music. If you don't know anything about, opera, let's say, and try to listen, your brain doesn't have the resources to deal with it. It doesn't know what to expect. It can't predict what comes next. It has no idea of what patterns may be in the music, and it can't find any pleasurable repetition. If you don't know anything about opera, your brain is ill-equipped to deal with opera, and you probably won't like it. Now, if you are determined to learn to like opera, the fastest way around that is to learn something about it first. Even more helpful is to have an opera lover explain it to you as it's happening. Eventually, the penny will drop, and you'll find yourself starting to enjoy this new form of music, or at least new to you, that was previously foreign to you. Now, obviously, this applies to all new forms of music that you might encounter. I guess what I'm trying to say is that don't dismiss something new and unfamiliar out of hand. And don't immediately dismiss something that sounds initially disagreeable. You can train your brain. Now, this doesn't always work. With me, it's country music. Believe me, I've tried to like country music. I've even spent a ton of time in Nashville talking with the country community. I've hung around with hardcore fans. I've interviewed many country musicians. I've been to country shows. And through these experiences, I've come to know quite a bit about country music. But no matter how much I try to increase my cognitive familiarity with all aspects of country music, I just can't stand it. Now, hold that thought. Meanwhile, I love stuff like this, which I know is pure torture for others. Whew, okay, there, I feel better. But I wonder how many people turned down the volume or skipped ahead when that Nine Inch Nails song came on. But why would they do that? Well, there were 3 rationales for disliking a certain song or even an entire genre of music. First of all, you just may not like how it sounds, from the way it's composed to the lyrics to the various aesthetics in the music. Second, you just don't like the way it feels, the emotions and physical reactions it stirs, and how everything differs from your personal self-image just don't jive. And third, social reasons. You don't like the music because everyone around you doesn't like it. If the music doesn't put you in a desired mood, it doesn't connect with your identity or go with the rest of the group, you will not like it. And it doesn't stop there. Let's talk about musical taste. This can be broken down into 3 parts. First, the music we prefer is inseparable from our life experiences, meaning that we have deep psychological connections to our favorite music. This can be both pleasurable or, frankly, not so pleasurable. We may love a song or a type of music because it's related to some specific good time. Or we may hate a song or a genre because it's connected to something bad that happened to us. And sometimes it's right in the middle. Maybe you remember drowning your sadness over a bad breakup with a selection of songs that reflected how you felt at the time. You may have gotten over the breakup, but those songs still bring back those feelings. And those feelings are probably sad. Or they may remind you of how you were able to carry on, pick yourself up, and become a better person. Or they may bring back some real nostalgia. Something else to consider. Our musical taste is influenced by our personality type. Are you an extrovert or an introvert? Are you open or shy? Are you naturally agreeable or moody? And our tastes are influenced by our environment, the time of day, and even geography. Let me explain that. Reggae and dancehall sound brilliant when you're on a Caribbean vacation. But have you noticed that it doesn't feel the same when you're back at home? And it's why you may not appreciate metal in the morning, but after dark, it's game on. And it explains why there's music for work, music for relaxing, music for driving, music for working out, and so on. If you want to try an experiment, as you listen to this song, note the time of day, where you are, what you're doing, and who's with you. And then revisit the song when conditions have completely changed. Now, in which situation did you like this song more? Remember, go back and listen to that song again when your listening conditions are different than they are right now. Any difference in how much you enjoy or hate it? Even a small difference will show how malleable and liquid your taste in music is. And this applies to all of us. In a moment, we'll jump into the topic of music and mental health. This is another episode in an occasional series called Medical Mysteries of Music, where we plumb the connections between our brains, our bodies, and music. In case it needs saying again, here we go. Music is good for your mental health. It can be a great healing force. The ancient Greeks knew this. So did the Egyptians in the time of the pharaohs. What is it about music that's so good for our brains? Scientists have figured out a few things. First of all, music engages the same parts of the brain that are involved in hearing, listening, movement, attention, language, emotion, memory, and thinking skills. All 4 lobes of the cerebral hemispheres and the brainstem are involved, and it helps all of them to work together. Basically, this means that listening to and playing music stimulates the brain just like a hard hour at the gym gives you a full-body workout. Music works out the brain. It impacts on mood and emotions, and it makes us want to move. In short, it forces parts of the brain to do stuff together. This leads to improved cognitive function, especially when it comes to memory and learning. And if music makes you want to dance, all the better. Dancing has been shown to reduce the risk of dementia. Okay, wait, what? Dancing as a prevention of dementia? Yes. The more you dance, apparently, the greater the hippocampal volume. The hippocampus is the part of the brain that's the center of learning and memory. It also produces a specific brain protein that stimulates the growth of new brain cells. But what about just listening to music? Does that stave off cognitive decline? Well, we're still not sure, but scientists do know that playing a musical instrument can help. Singing in a choir can help. Some studies suggest that it doesn't matter when you take up singing or the guitar or the piano or whatever. It is never too late, apparently, at least as far as the brain is concerned. Meanwhile, music therapy is an exciting field. Careful prescription of the right music can help with everything from anxiety to PTSD to strokes to Parkinson's. It is a fact that music can use to rejuvenate and restore some aspects of brain function. All right, so what kind of music? Well, that all depends on the individual. There's something called the World Happiness Report that seeks to measure how happy people are around the world. We have learned year after year that the more metal bands a country has, the happier its people. More specifically, the more metal bands per 100,000 citizens, the higher the average happiness score. And I know, correlation does not mean causation. But this data has been pretty consistent over the years. And by this measure, the happiest countries are Iceland, Norway, Sweden, and especially Finland, which has 53.2 metal bands per 100,000 people. Canada is in the upper third of the happiness versus metal scale with somewhere around 5 metal bands per 100,000 people. The US and the UK fall behind that. Meanwhile, most of Africa has almost no metal bands, and these countries score very low on the happiness scale. Why? We're not sure. There's other factors involved, obviously. But let's have some listen to some Finnish metal. How does this make you feel? This is Amorphous, one of Finland's most revered bands, and the song is called Sacrifice. Okay, so Finns are a happy people because they have more metal bands than anyone else. And here's something else that applies to the rest of the world. A 2021 study by the Vera Clinic in Turkey showed that listening to metal can lower your blood pressure, bring down your heart rate, and reduce your overall anxiety. The clinic brought together 1,540 volunteers between the ages of 18 and 65 to engage in non-verbal reasoning tests that were specifically designed to lower stress. They also listened to various Spotify playlists. Heart rate and blood pressure were monitored the whole time. When all the data was crunched, metal was the second most effective genre at dissipating anxiety. 89% of the volunteers saw their blood pressure drop, while 18% had their hearts beat slower. Only pop music worked better. Why? The doctor who led the study said, "In terms of heavy metal, I'd observed that angry music can help listeners process their feelings. As a result, it leads to greater well-being." Add this to a music therapy study conducted at Harvard. Just like specific drugs are needed to treat specific diseases, music therapy needs the right musical meds. Dr. Mark Tramos says that AC/DC can act like a chemo drug. The riffs, the beats, the melodies, and simple lyrics seem to hit all the targets. Listening to AC/DC can improve heart rate and blood pressure. It can regulate and boost muscle activity. It can improve athletic performance, strength, endurance, and power. And listen to this. If a surgeon listens to AC/DC while operating, he or she will make fewer mistakes because this music seems to encourage focus on the task at hand. And if AC/DC is prescribed to a cancer patient, there is a significant chance that anxiety and pain will be reduced. And this in turn improves the effectiveness of any medication. There was a study in Alberta that looked at the metabolization of drugs while listening to music. Music can affect the concentration of hormones in your system. Those same hormonal pathways are used by prescription drugs. More work needs to be done, but there are strong indications that listening to the right music while taking the right drugs will help those drugs do their job better. Okay, here's another experiment. Here are the Dropkick Murphys covering AC/DC. I'm playing this version because personally I feel it's better than the original. And I believe this because it is on my running list and it has been there for years. Whenever it comes up, I automatically get a second win. I go faster, I go harder. Your results may vary, but I can certainly vouch for the results.
I tell you folks, it's harder than it looks. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. If you think it's easy,
I don't know about you, but after hearing that, I feel great. Here's another thing about music and mental health. Over the last 30 years, the average pop song has been getting shorter. In 1990, the average length of a pop song on the Billboard Hot 100 was about 4 minutes, just over 4 minutes actually. It's now less than 3. There are a lot of reasons for this. Shorter attention spans, gaming the economics of streaming, attempts at going viral, the TikTok effect, and so on. This, however, seems to be bad for our mental health. A study by the British Academy of Sound Therapy makes the argument that longer songs are better for you. They brought together 8,000 people and determined that the optimal state of relaxation while listening to music comes after listening to a song that's anywhere from 9 to 13 minutes long. Okay, you could certainly string together a bunch of short songs to reach that 9-minute mark, but it seems more beneficial to the mind and body to use fewer and thus longer songs, fewer interruptions, The absolute best music for this should come as no surprise. Slow tempo, simple melody, few or zero lyrics. Now, this song from Washed Out is only about 4 minutes, but if you were to mate it with 2 other songs of roughly the same length and style, you could find yourself pretty blissed out. Feel better? Oh, I just thought of something. If you take the British study about longer songs being good for you and made it with the studies on the positive effects metal has on the brain and mental health, then shouldn't more doctors be prescribing Tool? Like, take Tool songs and call me in the morning? Just a thought. A few more medical mysteries of music coming up, including a few more tips and tricks that you might want to try yourself. Here is another fascinating study about how humans process music. This is from Finland. No matter where a person is from, and no matter their cultural or ethnic background, humans have the exact same body sensations when they hear the same song. Let me explain. 2,000 people from the US, the UK, and China were asked how they felt while listening to music. They were all played the same songs and asked, what part of the body did you feel change when you listened to this music? In other words, where in the body did you feel sensations associated with this music? Their answers were plotted on what was called a body sensation map, which located where they felt the music the most. And everyone answered exactly the same. Sad songs were felt in the head, but also in the chest area and around the heart. Scary songs affected the head, a little bit of the chest, and the stomach. Happy songs affected the head, the chest, and the feet. With dancey songs, it was head, shoulders, and feet. And aggressive and heavy songs seemed to settle in the head, neck, and jaw. Bottom line, there seems to be something universal about how music activates our bodies, no matter where we're from and what our backgrounds are. So let's try this. Listen closely. Where on your body, where in your body do you feel this?
My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt.
Definitely a gut-wrenching song, and almost everyone will feel that in their chest and their stomach, as well as in their head. I want to finish up with a few music and medical mystery stories that might help in everyday life. Nobody likes going to the doctor or the dentist. Can music help? Yes, it can. In 2024, a healthcare company tried to determine the best music for anxious patients in a waiting room at a doctor's or dentist's office. They discovered that classical music was best, followed by jazz. And in third place, which I think is really interesting, was lo-fi alt-rock. Listening to that sort of music resulted in patients who were less anxious before and after any kind of surgery or dentistry. They also needed much less in the way of pain medication. Okay, so if that kind of music works, what music should be avoided? Country and high-energy pop. And it gets better. If you go into surgery and have your favorite songs played while you're out and being operated on, you're under total general anesthetic, you will feel less pain when it's all over. I can give you a song to start with. This song has been proven through medical studies to help with pre- and post-op anxiety with the dentist and the surgeon. Why? No idea. Here's some Weezer.
It's gonna take a lot to drag me away from you. There's nothing that 100 men or more could ever do. I bless the rains down in Africa. Gonna take some time.
Finally, let's talk about music and working. Can background music help with your concentration, or is it a distraction? Well, it all depends. Factors include genre, volume, tempo, how old you are, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, how complex the task at hand is, and whether the music is instrumental or has lyrics. There have been tons of studies into music at work. Soft, fast music may be the most beneficial when you're trying to study or learn something, which surprised me. And so did this. Slow, soft music may negatively impact studying and learning. Loud music, no matter what the speed or genre, is bad. If you're familiar with the music, that's better. If you know the songs, you're putting less of a strain on your working memory, leaving more brain cells available for taking in the new information with your studying and learning. Instrumental music, no surprise, has the least distractions. Classical music and chill-out tracks work best here, although movie soundtracks also score well. Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, that kind of thing. And video game music is also shown to increase productivity. Hip-hop, the most distracting, largely because songs can be so lyrically dense. But let's try to find a prescription for you. When we're awake, our brains are in a state called beta. We're alert. Our brainwave activity is running between 14 and 30 hertz. If we can slow that down to between 7 and 14 hertz, the so-called alpha state, we're more relaxed, we're more receptive, and less critical. This is when our imagination, memory, and intuition is at its best. Remember the last time you had a eureka moment and suddenly everything about a problem or situation came together in a clear light? You were in an alpha state when that happened. When it comes to background music and maximum concentration, learning ability, and imagination, we need to get our brains into that alpha state. The music will be playing, but you won't really hear it. One study says you're tuning out while being tuned in. To achieve this, you need songs that you know very well, and they should be between 50 and 80 beats per minute. Now, here is an example. 80 beats per minute. It doesn't require too much from your brain, and it might just get you into that alpha state. It's from Portugal the Man.
Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. I've been feeling it since 1966 now. Might have had your fill, I can feel it still. Ooh, I'm a rebel just for kicks now. Let me kick it like it's 1986 now.
Did that work? Are you in the alpha state? Again, it'll be different for everybody, but you want music between 50 and 80 beats per minute when you're studying, when you're learning, when you're trying to solve a problem, or you're just ruminating life in general. So it's time to make a playlist. Like I said off the top, I'm fascinated by the intertwining of music and medicine and the brain and the body. Let me throw one final thing at you. There is a state called lucid dreaming. This is when you're aware that you're dreaming. What's more is that you're able to manipulate the dream and take control of the narrative. We don't know why this happens, but it can be fun. The trick is to learn how to lucid dream. One trigger could be music. When you wake up in the morning, take a few minutes to remember your dreams. Then set what you remember to a soundtrack by playing specific songs. Then, before bed, play those same songs. The goal is to reach a relaxed, sleepy state during which your mind will relate those songs back to those previous dreams. And that could give you the control you're looking for. If you want to go deeper into this medical mystery of music, look up binaural beats. This type of music may work best. So, sweet dreams. If you want more ongoing history, there are hundreds of free podcasts available for download. Rate and review if you get a chance. Email about any of them can be sent to alan@alancross.ca, and I will personally answer. I'm on all the social media platforms. I have my website, ajournalofmusicalthings.com, which is updated every day, along with its free newsletter. And don't forget about my other podcast, Uncharted, Crime and Mayhem in the Music Industry. It's all about the intersection of music and true crime. Some really crazy stuff in there. Technical production for all this is by Rob Johnston. Talk to you next time. I'm Alan Cross.